Chapter 8, Part 3, we are talking about special cases of factoring quadratics. So we're going to look at number 27a, which is 9x squared minus 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little factor tree and see, if I break these down, if they have a greatest common factor. And when I look at my 9x squared, which is 3 times x, and my 4 as 2 times 2, there's no GCF besides a 1. So we're going to leave it the same. But I am going to put in a 0x because we're missing that middle term. So now from here, I'm going to set up my rectangle. Remember, the first term always goes in the bottom left, the last term in the top right. And then I set up my diamond. I multiply the two sides of my diamond together to get negative 36x squared, and now my middle term is 0x. So I want to think what two numbers multiply to give me negative 36x squared, but add to give me 0x. And the only combination that's going to work is 6 and negative 6x. And I'm going to plug them in, and then I'm going to find out my dimensions of my rectangle. So I basically am finding my greatest common factor, and then I can work backwards to see, what times 3x gives me 6x, and find my factors. So my factors are going to be 3x plus 2 and 3x minus 2. So if I'm missing that middle term, I can do it, but just plug in a 0. Part B, example B here, we have 12x squared minus 16x. So I'm going to start by doing a factor tree and writing out my prime factorization. So I have 2 times 2 times 3 times x times x. Same thing with 16. I'm going to break that down to my prime numbers. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times x. Now I want to see what's the same. So they have a 2 in common, another 2 in common, and an x. So they have a 2 times 2 times x, which means the greatest common factor is 4x. So GCF is 4. So I'm going to put 4x outside of a small rectangle, a 2-box rectangle, and I'm going to put my 12x squared minus 16x inside. And now I want to figure out what goes on the bottom of this rectangle. I know the side is 4x. So we want to work backwards. So we want to figure out what times 4x is 12x squared. Well, that's going to be 3x. And then what times 4x is negative 16? That's going to be a negative 4. So our factored form is 4x times 3x minus 4. Okay, one more of these. We're going to take a look. Well, actually, I'm going to correct myself. Instead, we're going to take a look at something as in problem number 30. So we're going to factor out 10x squared plus 25x minus 15. So before I start, I'm going to do a factor tree, and I'm going to write out my prime factorization of all of these. So 10x squared is now 2 times 5 times x times x. 25x is 5 times 5 times x. And 15 is just 3 times 5. So if I look, they all have a 5 in common. So my GCF is going to be 5. So I'm going to take a 5, put it outside a rectangle, and put my 10x squared plus 25x minus 15 inside. And I want to find out what is going to go on the bottom of my rectangle. So we're working backwards, and basically we're dividing each of them by 5. So what times 5 is 10x squared? Well, it's going to be 2x squared. Oops, I'm missing an x in here. What times 5 is 25x? Well, that's 5x. What times 5 is negative 15? That's going to be a negative 3. So I'm going to take this and do my rectangle and my diamond. So my 2x squared goes in the bottom left, negative 3 top right. I multiply them to get the top of the diamond. Bottom of the diamond is the middle term. Now I want to think what times what gives me negative 6, but asking me 5. and that's going to be a 6x and a negative 1x. And now I want to find out what goes on the sides of my rectangle. And like I said, I can work backwards to find these. And when you go to write your factored form, you don't want to forget about that 5 that you took out in the beginning. So that's just going to go in front of your 2 parentheses. So I have 5 times x plus 3 and 2x minus 1. So we're taking the GCF first, take that out, and then we're going to break it down by doing a diamond and a rectangle.